Hi everyone. I'm Stan here talking. Going to do another reading from the Protégé project for self-defense. And the reading I'm going to do today is a reading called "The Three Little Wolves and the Big Bad Pig." By Eugene Trevisas and Helen Oxenberry. You see that there? Yeah. See that? Check that, right? Three little wolves. All loving, all enjoying each other, all enjoying themselves, right? One family. And so the last reading, was the reading we talked about Z and T. And towards the end of that book, Yo Yes, by Chris Reshka, you see Z and T, coming together, right? Defending each other. Now that when they go off and when they say yow, nobody's going to harm them, right? They're going to defend each other, right? Against all of that stuff out there that wants to tell them who they are, who they should be, right? That wants to put them down and keep them down, right? So that's why we talk about self-defense, right? We're defending ourselves against, what some people call, what we talk about, right, as oppression, right? And oppression, yeah, sure, it is a big word, but really what it means is all that stuff out there that wants to put us down and wants to keep us down, right? Just so they can, for their own self-interest, right? So they can make themselves richer, right? So they become more powerful, right? So then oppression, right? All that stuff out there that wants to put us down and wants to keep us down. So self-defense then means that we want to think about how we resist that, right? How we oppose that, right? How we say, get it back, get behind me, right? Right? Where we look at it in the face and we say, I'm not afraid of you, right? I have no fear, right? Because we are all together, all of my family, all of my collectives, everyone. We're all standing together to resist and to oppose you, right? Okay. So I think about self-defense, right? And I want us to think about that. I'll ask some questions at the end of this reading, right? And this book for me, it's all about self-defense, right? Some people will read it and take some different things away from it. But for me, I talked a little bit about myself in the last read aloud, and self-defense, I've been defending myself all of my life, right? Ever since I was a child. I talked in the last video about how I was taken away, by the social services. I was into foster care. I was on the streets. I was put away where folks as a child were taken away from my mother for long periods of time. Racism, hit us hard, right? My father from the Caribbean, my mother was poor and white, kicked out of a house, right? Had to put up with, with violence from everywhere, from men, from social services, social workers, etc. All of that stuff, right? So, but for me, I didn't see much of that. All I saw was that everywhere around me, it seemed to be folks who wanted to put me down and make me feel ashamed of myself and keep me down, make me feel ashamed of my family, right? With my father and my mother, right? So and it made me angry and it made me mad, right? When I say that I'm talking about feeling of just not knowing who I am or what I am and not wanting to be in this world, right? But what happened was that everything that I did then, and my whole approach, right? Everything, my response, right, was to oppose, right? And as a child, my first recollections of opposing was to shout and to scream sometimes. But when I couldn't do that, and to fight, right? Did a lot of fighting, right? when I couldn't do that, when these folks who had a lot of power, right, people in suits, right, who seem to have the power to take you away from your family, right, and decide, where you were going to go, right, decide your life, right, because it was, for me as a child, this was a form of prison, right? You're taken away from your family, your community is a form of prison, right? And then you're punished, right, every day. You're sort of, wagging the finger. You're punished by if you don't do this and you don't do that and you don't do the other, right? And so sometimes they would leave me in places. I would find myself in very, posh, right, places, rich places, in waiting rooms, right, waiting for them sometimes to decide what to do with me. And my mother sometimes would be outside, try to plead, to have me stay with her, plead to please, can I keep my son, right, And in those moments, and sometimes it wasn't always when I'm waiting alone, waiting for them and hearing what is going on outside, but sometimes it would be my passing through these corridors of these, places of power, right? These places of rich folks, right? Who had all the power to make decisions about you. My way of defending myself was to pick my nose, right? Right? And I had a lot of snot up there, right? A lot of snot, right? Because, I'd be in pain, right? A lot of the time I'd be crying, right? Even when I was fighting and screaming, I'd be crying at the same time, right? So I had a lot of rage, right? And I still have a lot of rage, right? But we can talk about that. That's rage for social justice, right? We've all got to have, right? Anger and rage for social justice, right? It's good, right? So that was just the way I talked, right? Was to just to scream and to shout, and I would cry a lot, right? And I was in pain, right? A lot of pain, right? But I was able still, right? To do self-defense. So all this snot, right? And sometimes it was like green stuff up there, caked up there, right? Really caked up there, right? The last thing I'm interested in, right? The last thing I want to do, right? I'm thinking about, right, is blowing my nose, right? They would give you these handkerchiefs, right? To blow your nose when I went into these places, which they kept me at, right? Trying to civilize me, turn me into one of them, right? So I pick my nose and I get it out there like this, big boogers, right? Like this, big out there, right? And I put it under the posh furniture, right? Or I'd slide it on their door handles, right? Or on the nice posh wood sideboards, right? On the walls and stuff like that, right? And I knew I'd smile, right? And they'd come out, right, and they'd remove me or decide what they were going to do with me, where they were going to take me. And I smiled, right, because, they thought that I was, they could do what they want with me, but they couldn't control this, right? They couldn't take a hold of me, right? I had power still, right? Because I knew that those boogers, right, were right there, right? All nasty and all sticking and all kind of crunching up now, right? All getting all nice and cakey, right? And they didn't know that it was there, but I knew, right? So I would have this little smile on myself, right? And so that kept a little bit of power for me, right? They couldn't take all that, right? So we can do self-defense, right? In any way, in any form, in any kind of circumstances, right? Any way we find ourselves, right? We can do self-defense, right? They don't have the whole power over us, One of the things we got to talk about, right, is how we've got the power, right? Right? We've got power, right? So, self-defense, right? So, the three little wolves and the big bad pig, right? Okay. Trevisas and Helen Oxenbury, right? So here we go. So, first thing we got to do, right, is just like the last one, I'm going to give these folks names, right? Here's the three little wolves here. So I'm going to call these folks the three little wolves. This is Mama Wolf right here, right? The wolves, little wolves call Mama, Mama, it's Mama. I don't know why, don't ask me, but it's Mama, right? Mama. Perhaps they were born posh at one time, I don't know, and then they kind of, fell on hard times, right? I'm going to call this little wolf Earth, and I'm going to call this little wolf here Wind, and I'm going to call this little wolf here Fire, right? So it's Earth, Wind, and Fire, right? And I'd like to think, right, that Mama, right, called them that, right? Named them Earth, Wind, and Fire because, they're all connected, right? They're everything that gives life, right? Earth, wind, and fire. It's everything that is a part of us, everything that we rely upon, right? It gives the whole planet life, right? And they're all connected, right? All connected in love, right? And they cannot, right? Each one, cannot be without the other, right? You cannot have earth without fire, and fire without wind, and earth without fire and wind and fire without earth, right? And earth, right? Earthy, connects everything, right? It grounds and connects everything, right? Right? We can't exist without earth, right? Okay. And so I think that Mama, gave them those names because of just how powerful, right? How much power, she felt that her little wolves had, right? Okay, here we go. And you see, let me just wait a little bit. You see Earth here, right? Looking at, giving Mama a little kiss, right? A little taking care of her, right? And all the little wolves kind of look a little bit, a little bit sad, some of them, right? A little wondering what's going on. But, Mama's she's got a message right now, right? She's got a message to give them, right? And it's an important message, right? So once upon a time, there were 3 cuddly wolves with soft fur and fluffy tails who lived with their mother, right? The first was black, the second was gray, and the third was white, right? Earth, wind, and fire, though we're calling them, right? Difference, right? All this difference, right? Within the same family, of course. That's life, right? That's all of us, right? Right? Yeah. Difference and connected, right? One day, the mother called the 3 little wolves around and said, "My children, it's time for you to go out into the world. Go and build a house for yourselves, but beware of the big bad pig." "Don't worry, Mother. We will watch out for him," said the 3 little wolves. And they set off, right? So they have to go out now on their own, right? Make their own world, make their own lives, right? Hard, right? Ooh, ooh, ooh. And there's a big bad pig out there, right? A big bad pig. Now, we're going to call the big bad pig BP, right? BP, okay? I'll carry on. Let's carry on. Soon, right? They're out there now on their own, right? Soon, they met a kangaroo, right? Who was pushing a wheelbarrow full of red and yellow bricks. "Please, will you give us some of your bricks?" asked the 3 little wolves. "Certainly," said the kangaroo. And she gave them lots of red and yellow bricks, right? And so the 3 little wolves built themselves a house of bricks, right? Now, here they are, right? Here they are, buying the bricks, right? Yeah. And you see Earth here, right? Looking, this is the kind of look going on here, right? You see that look there? And, there's wind, right? And this fire now sort of, sort of like a sort of begging a little bit, "Can we please have these bricks? Can we please have them?" And then I feel like kangaroos that with this look is looking at Earth here and saying, "What are you going to do with these bricks then?" I'm thinking, it's got that look at, now you're not going to do anything kind of, that you shouldn't be doing with those bricks, are you? And then I'm thinking that Earth is looking there. You see the look on Earth's face, right? Earth is like saying, "Do you really want to know?" Look at that look there, right? You really want to know? You really want to ask those questions? And like kangaroo is like, maybe not. Okay, all right, okay. Is that kind of a question you really want to ask? Don't ask. So they build themselves then a house of bricks, right? And here they are, right? Look at it, look at it, look at it. And you notice, right? Kangaroo, right? Gives them these bricks. That's certainly, even though, there's kind of a look here, right? That's, I don't know about that. Bricks for three little wolves? I don't know. Still gives them the bricks, right? Without questioning in a sense, right? Doesn't really question, right? So sure, you have the bricks, right? Yeah. So it's like there's a community out here, right? A community out there that's just about, I don't know, about sharing. They're not having to buy anything, right? Don't have to buy anything. Yeah, yeah. And here they are, right? Here's the house. Look at that, look at that, look at that. So like you got Earth up here now looking down, right? Kind of organizing everything here, right? Organizing stuff, right? And then you've got you've got wind here. Wind is carrying stuff over here, doing all the heavy lifting stuff here, and then you got fire there, really concentrating, right? That concentrated fire, right? On measuring the stuff, right? And, they're building this, right? And it, have they done this before? I don't know, but this just tells you how important, right? Mama's been, right? Because maybe Mama's just taught them all about this, right? All of these skills, maybe, or maybe at the same time, maybe Mama's just taught them, taught them kind of some skills, but maybe they're just brilliant, right? And they can do anything, right? You put something in front of them, and they can just make sense of it, and and create something out of it, right? Absolutely brilliant. Earth, wind, and fire, right? Power, right? Okay, so that's good, right? So they've got now the house, right? So everything's going to be fine, right? No problem with BP, right? No problem. You got the house, got everything, right? Whoever Big Bad Pig is, right? Whoever BP is, don't know. Never seen BP. I don't know who that is, right? But we're good. We got the house. We're good. And so we're gonna have a wonderful life, right? Look at that. We built the house. Look at the house. Isn't it beautiful, right? Oh, it is beautiful. It's so beautiful. And they've got little birds here. Notice the birds here, and you notice the birds over here as well, right? All the birds around here. You got nature going on here, clouds here, and here you got. Oh, we're right. All the trees here, right? So everything's lovely, right? Everything's natural, right? You've got some flowers. It looks like over here, all the countryside, birds, leaves, trees, the grass here, and they're playing this game, right, together, right? And they're breathing, right? Everybody can breathe, right? They feel safe. They feel free. So happy, right? But you notice windy over here, right? I see something, right? Over here, just a little look there. What's going on over here, right? It's BP, right? The next day, after they've built this house, they're playing, what is this game? Croquet. I'm not quite sure what it is. You put this hammer here, somehow you got to get the balls in this kind of, this little thing here, right? It's fun, right? It's fun. The very next day, the big bad pig came prowling down the road and saw the house of bricks that the little wolves had built, right? The three little wolves were playing croquet in the garden, and when they saw the big bad pig coming, they ran inside the house and locked the door. So look at BP. Look at BP. Right, yeah. A bit, menacing, right? Yeah. Pretty angry, yeah. Got some problems, right? The pig knocked on the door and grunted, little wolves, let me come in." There's the big bad pig. There's BP right there. "No, said the three little wolves, by the hairs on our chinny chins, we will not let you in for all the tea leaves in our teapot." And you see, look. You see, windy here, right? Hiding behind fire, right? And there's Earthy there, just looking there, checking stuff out, right? And they're kind of, they're afraid, right? They're scared. Of course, you would be, right? You would be scared, right? And we're gonna see what that happens, right? One of the things is to try to deal with what do we do with fear, right? Oppression, talking about oppression before, right? That stuff out there that puts us down and wants to keep us down makes us also afraid. He wants to make us afraid and wants to make us live in fear, right? So to resist and to oppose, right, is also to resist and oppose fear, right? When we decide we have power, right, we also say we're not afraid. We do not have fear of you, right? But right now, they're so afraid, right? I mean, who knows what the big bad pig can do? Who knows what the powers BP has, right? When it comes to hurting you, right? Right? Okay, we will not let you in, not to all the tea leaves on our teapot. Then I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down, said the pig. So he huffed, and he puffed, and he puffed, and he huffed. But the house didn't fall down. No, it didn't. It didn't fall down. No, look, 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 look. The birds are scared, right? Everything's scared, right? You got the tiles up here. Very good job, right? Look at the tiles. Absolutely wonderful, right? No training. No, just fantastic, right? And blowing the tiles apart like this, right? Flowers are getting knocked about, right? What's going on here? There's earthy right there, right? Windows are getting a little bit knocked about, a little cracked, right? But the house is fine, right? House is fine. It's all good, right? It's all good. Yeah. So you're inside, right? We're inside, all together, right? Run inside, holding each other, right? Pig can't get in. The pig, BP, isn't called big and bad for nothing. He goes out and fetches his sledgehammer, right? And he knocks the house down. Look at that. Look at that. Will you look at that, right? Look at BP. Everything falls down. Everything's smashed, right? Birds are flying off here, right? And look at the three little wolves. Look at Earth, Wind, and Fire, right? The Earth, Wind, and Fire only just managed to escape before the bricks crumbled. And they were very, very frightened indeed. Very, very frightened. Well, you would be, right? You would be. You notice something. One thing about the three little wolves, Earth, Wind, and Fire, is that they like tea, right? They like nice things, right? They like tea. They like nature. They like leaves because they're connected. Earth, Wind, and Fire. They need to have nature around them, right? Right? You gotta have it. You gotta have it to breathe, right? And they love the tea. They like herb tea, ginger tea, all kinds of teas, right? Love it. So they have their little teapot here, right? Right, little teapot. And it's that around the tea time, when they have their teas together, that's when they talk, and that's when they're at the most happy at the end of the day, just sitting around, just drinking tea. Oh, it's wonderful, right? Just living the life, right? Just not harming anybody, just living your life, right? But they make sure, because Mama gave them this, right? Make sure they're going to take the teapot away, right? Yeah. Well, what we're going to do, right? I don't know. Because self-defense here means that you are also, right? You're organizing, right? How to defend yourself, right? So when we talk about self-defense, we're talking about, okay, let's get together. Well, let's have a discussion, right? And let's figure out, right? How we are going to, right? Resist and oppose BP, right? What are we going to do, right? So we all got to work together on this, right? Well, we shall have to build a stronger house. They said, and just then, a stronger house, right? Sounds good, yeah, sounds very good, right? Just then they saw a beaver, right, who was mixing concrete in a concrete mixer. Please, will you give us some of your concrete? Asked the three little wolves. And there we go. They're asking the beaver, right, for concrete. There you go. And you see earthy over here, right? Windy again. Part of it all, but just a little shy, right? Everybody supporting each other, right? But it's also, sometimes it's earthy, right? Who's the first one to go in there, right? Everything everything is connected to earthy, right? Asks the beaver. You got a nice little face on beaver here, right? And what does beaver say? Beaver doesn't say, well, okay, how much money do you have, right? What am I going to get out of this, right? No, I don't have enough. What beaver says is, sure, yeah, sure, certainly, sure. sure. And he gives them buckets and buckets of full of messy, right? Messy, slurry concrete, right? And so the three little wolves, Earth, Wind, and Fire, build themselves a house of concrete. Oh, great idea. Great idea. What do you think? Do you think that's a good idea? Right? I mean, I'll ask you now. It's the planning's good here, right? You know the plan. I think, right? You don't have money, right? And everybody's about to give you stuff, right? Not asking any questions, right? Beaver doesn't ask, well, what are you going to do with this? Just gives it, right? Everybody knows that, right? They share things, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to build a house because BP's knocking down your first house, so you build a stronger house, right? What do you think of that? That's good, right? That's good, right? It's good self-defense, right? Yeah. Piece of cake, right? Piece of cake. So there they are, right? There they are. And you see, you got Fiery over here, right? Fire's over here, right? And you got Windy here, just kind of observing things because maybe this is actually Windy's kind of specialty, right? Watching for, measuring things up here, right? Watching to see what's going to be spilt and what's not, right? And you got Earthy here, right? Well, Earthy's doing everything again, right? Carrying, watching, right? Planning, right? Designing the house, right? Design the house, right? Yeah. Good thing as well. Good thing. Notice how, nobody's asking them to say, no, you can't build a house here. No, we own this land, right? Everything is shared, right? Everything is shared, and you just take what you need, right? Right? You don't take any more than that, right? Right? And this is, this is how indigenous peoples, right? Have lived for thousands of years, right? We take what we need, right? You take what you need, right? And no more than that, right? And that's how the planet, right? Is continues to grow, right? Continues to breathe, right? Yeah. Of course, BP wants to take more than that. He wants to take everything, right? Right? Anyway, but let's go. Let's carry on. Okay. There it is. Okay. Before we get to BP, look at that. So this is what they built, right? Now, what do you think? And they're playing this game. Let me see. They're playing this game called Battledore and Shuttlecock. I'm not quite sure what these games are. I think I know what this is. This guy, you knock this you build this, right? This kind of like netting here, right? And then you get these tennis rackets here, and you knock this kind of this thing here called a shuttlecock or whatever it is, right? Just kind of like tennis, right? You're banging about, and you have fun, right? Fun, look, Earthy's just brilliant at it. Wind is pretty good, Fire's a little bit tired out, right? So all the building, right? But they're having fun. Right. So what do you think of this? Right. This is the house they built. Right. This is self-defense. Right. This is what they've come up with. Right. Looks strong. Right. Looks strong. It looks strong, doesn't it? Yeah. It looks very strong. Looks really strong. Right. BP is not going to get through that. Right. Yeah. No. But what else do you see? What else do you see? Or maybe what else? What don't you see? What do you not see in this whole thing, right? Give you an idea. Let's go back to the first house, right? Look at this. The BP destroyed. Here we go. There we go. Look at that. So you have the trees over here, right? Sun's coming down here, grass here, probably birds and flowers, right? Lovely smells of nature, right? All around us, right? And Earth, Wind, and Fire, are breathing, right? Earth, Wind, and Fire are alive, right? Because they're connected, right? To all nature around them, right? Now let's go back, right? See what they built, right? You don't see no birds, right? No birds, right? No grass, right? No leaves, no trees, right? No insects, right? No sounds of nature, right? So how are you going to breathe, really breathe with all your body, in what is a prison, right? Right? Is it? Yeah. Think about it, right? Right? So they build this to keep BP out, right? Question is, are they keeping themselves in? No sooner had they finished than the big bad pig came prowling down the road and saw the house of concrete that the little wolves had built, right? I'm going to come out of the picture just a little bit so you can see, right? They were playing battledore and shuttlecocking in the garden, right? Which is what this stuff is over here, right? You know, this over here. And when they saw the big bad pig, when they saw BP coming, they ran inside the house and shut the door. The pig rang the bell and said, "Little frightened wolves, let me come in." "Oh, no, no, no," said the three little wolves, "by the hairs on our chinny chin chins, we will not let you in, not for all the tea leaves in our teapot." "Then I'll off and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down," said the pig. So he huffed and he puffed, and he puffed and he huffed, but the house didn't fall down. Well, it's working. It's working, right? No trees. Can't breathe, really, you know. Can't hear any tree, any birds, nothing. Got no smells of nature. But it's keeping BP out, right? Yeah. It's a prison, but it's keeping BP out, right? Do you think? But BP wasn't called big and bad for nothing, right? He went and fetched his pneumatic drill and he smashed the house down. Oh, look at this. The three little wolves managed to escape, but their chinny chin chins were trembling and trembling and trembling. Oh my gosh, look, here's his fire, you know, getting Windy out, right? Windy always seems to be the last one, right? You know, I don't know why. And then you got, what they've done is they've made this kind of escape plan, right, out of sheets, right, so they can get down there, right? And you'll find, look at this, they're taking the teapot, right? They're not leaving the teapot, right? Look at that. But look at it all, right? Look at all these bars and everything like that, right? It's a prison, right? It's a prison, right? But it's not going to stop BP, right? You know, BP is too big and bad, right? You know, BP's also got, BP is smart as well, right? You know, he might be big and bad. He's not only big and bad, he's big and bad smart, right? Okay. What do you think? What do you think the solution now? What they're going to come up with? So they get around together, and you think, oh, how are we going to practice self-defense? How are we going to defend ourselves now? I have no idea. What do you think, Windy? I don't know. What do you think, Fire? I don't know. What do you think, Earthy? Well, maybe we shall have to build an even stronger house. What do you think? And they all go, yeah, sure, that sounds good. An even stronger house. Oh, nice, right? So, and they're very determined, right? You know, so, you know, they're afraid, right? They're afraid. They're scared, right? But they're not going to back down, right? You know, right? They're going to oppose BP, right? You know, even though they're scared, right? They still got power, right? Just then, so they did make a decision, right? Okay, we're going to build an even stronger house. Even stronger house. Just then, right, as they make that decision, right, they see a truck coming along the road carrying barbed wire, right, iron bars, armor plates, and heavy metal padlocks. Please, will you give us some of your barbed wire? Yes. A few iron bars, and armor plates, and maybe some of those heavy metal padlocks that you've got there. Can you do that, please? Yes. And apparently it's a rhino. It's a rhinoceros driving the truck. Yeah, rhinoceros. Yeah. Sure, said the rhinoceros. And she gave them plenty of barbed wire, right? Iron bars, armor plates, and heavy metal padlocks. And she also gave them some plexiglass, right? Not quite sure what that is. I think it's like see-through, very strong glass, right? Plastic stuff, right? Yeah. And also she gave them some reinforced, right, steel chains, right? Because she's a very generous rhinoceros, right? You know, yeah, I don't need to know. I don't need to know what you want it for. Here, share it. Yeah. So the three little wolves then built themselves an extremely strong house, right? And it was the strongest, right, securest house one could possibly imagine. And they felt absolutely safe, right? Right? They feel absolutely safe, right? So here's Rhino, right? You know, is all the chains and stuff like that. You got the barbed wire stuff going on here, right? You got all this, heavy armor plating going on here, right? Heavy metal padlocks and everything like that. What do you think? If the last one was a prison, right? What do you think this is? It's an even stronger prison, right? Right? Is it putting them even? They've made it even bigger and stronger, right? Prison to keep closed down the space. So look next door, right? They can't even move, right? They can't even play outside this time, right? Not even in the yard, right? The next day, BP comes prowling along the road as usual. The three little wolves are playing hopscotch in the garden, right? Well, I guess it's not really a garden, though, is it? It's not a garden, I mean, they're doing the best, right? They're in the yard, right? It's not a garden. It's in the yard, right? But, they're making do with what they have, right? They have what some folks talk about as, you give someone lemons, and what do you do with it? You make lemon juice, that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. When they saw the big bad pig coming, right? They see big bad pig coming. They ran inside the house, bolted the door, and locked all of the 37 padlocks, right? The pig dialed the video entrance phone and said, "Little frightened wolves with the trembling chins, let me come in. Oh, please, come on. Can I come in? Can I? And you notice what's going on here, right? Climbing over the top, right? Initially, right? But coming to the door, right? Look, it's got this stuff here, right? It looks kind of like dynamite to me. Oh yeah, it looks a little bit. Oh, look, right here. Look at this. Let me come in. No, said the three little wolves. By the hairs on our chinny chin chins, we will not let you in. Not for all the tea leaves in our teapot. No, absolutely not. No. Then I'll open up puff and I'll blow your house down, said the pig, right? So he huffed and he puffed, and he puffed and he huffed, but the house didn't fall down. Good. Pig, BP, isn't called big and bad for nothing, right? He brings some dynamite, lays it against the house, lights the fuse, and boom! Oh, the house blew up. Oh my God! Look, there's BP right there. Look! Smart, right? Right? Look at this. Where are they? Where are the three little? Where's Earth, Wind, and Fire? Where are you? Oh! Teapot. Taking the teapot away. Oh, and look, wind is dragging him, right? Behind some of the times, right, in terms of hiding, but now wind is getting strong, right? Yeah. The three little wolves just managed to escape with their fluffy tails scorched. His fluffy tails are really, really scorched. It's not nice. What do you do now, right? What are you gonna do now? They get together. Where do you go from there, right? Plexiglass, iron bars. Something must be wrong with our building materials, they said. But what? We have to try something different, but I don't know what we should be doing. What should we be doing? I don't know. Quite a while, growing up years ago, they grew up in England, right? This is why they have this sort of accent, right? Yeah. And then they went to posh school, right? And then they fell on hard times, right? And became, regular peoples, right? But they still had this accent, right? So just to tell you about the accent, right? But what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? I don't know. Where do you go from there, right? At that moment, just at that moment, they saw a flamingo coming along the road, pushing a wheelbarrow full of flowers, right? Full of flowers, right? Please, will you give us some of your flowers? Asked the little wolves. With pleasure, said the flamingo. And the flamingo gave them lots of flowers. So the three little wolves built themselves a house of flowers. I don't know about this, right? A house of flowers. Well, they're getting back, right, to the flowers. There's been no flowers before, right? All the flowers went with all the concrete and everything. So it's like that, they kind of, I don't know how that's going to keep the wolf out, the BP out. I mean, but it's like they're kind of getting back to connecting with who they are, right? Earth, Wind, and Fire, connecting with nature again. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. Let's see. There it is. Look at it. I mean, it's beautiful, right? This is look, these flowers over here and different color flowers over here. Oh, and they seem to be enjoying themselves. Look, 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 everything's, they seem to be alive again, right? You know, there seems to be, the fear seems to be going, right? Because you know what flowers can do. They can, and nature, right? Now we're being able to breathe with our whole body, right? You know, feeling free, feeling happy, feeling alive, right? You know. But what about BP? BP comes along. What is it? BP comes along with this, right? It's going to blow it away. I mean, you know, what's going to happen to the three little woods? What's going to happen to Earth, Wind, and Fire, right? So, one of these walls, right, was of marigolds, right? This yellow flower, right? You know, one is of daffodils, another yellow kind of flower, you know, and one of pink roses, right? You know, pink flowers. And one of cherry blossoms, right? You know, sort of reddish, sort of blossomy color, you know. It doesn't matter, just, you know, however we want to think about it, you know. Nice flowers. The ceiling was made of sunflowers, right? And the floor was a carpet of daisies, right? And they had water lilies in their bathtub and buttercups in their refrigerator. And it was a very fragile house, right? Very delicate, right? And it swayed in the wind, you know. But it was very, very beautiful. You see, his fire, right? You know, having his lovely sort of lilies, right? These kind of plants here in the water. So the water is going to smell all beautiful. Yeah, it's like an aroma, right? You know, yes. It's like being at a spa kind of thing, you know. So the next day, the big bad pig came prowling down the road and saw the house of flowers that the little wolves had built. He rang the bluebell at the door and said, "Little frightened wolves with the trembling chins and scorched tails, let me come in." No. Look how frightened they are now. Frightened, yes, frightened, but not, you know, they're scared, right? You know. But you know, they're still standing up to him, right? They're still standing up to BP, right? You know, because of course we're all scared at times, right? You know, yeah. But we're not going to allow BP to put us down. No way. To keep us on the floor. Start hugging himself. Because now, right? Now they don't have the plexiglass though, right? Right? So no wonder they're a little scared, right? Don't have the plexiglass, don't have the iron bars. And if he did that, right? If BP did that to the iron bars, right? And all the armor plating and all that, what is BP going to do to the flower house, right? No, said the three little wolves. No, absolutely not. No, we will not let you in. By the hair on our chinny chin chins, we will not let you in. Not for all the tea leaves in our teapot, right here. Then I'll off and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down, said the pig, right? It looks like it's all over. Looks like we have to say bye-bye to the three little wolves. Let's see what happens. But it doesn't look good, does it? Oh, what's going on here? Oh. But as BP takes a deep breath, ready to huff and puff, BP smells the soft scent of the flowers. And it's fantastic. And because the scent was so lovely, BP takes another breath and then another. And instead of huffing and puffing, BP begins to sniff. And BP sniffs deeper and deeper. And BP realizes, how horrible he'd be. I've been so horrible. Oh my God, you know. And right then, BP decides to be a good pig. GP, good pig, right? And BP starts to sing and starts to dance the tarantella, which is what that is, I think. Yeah. But starts to dance, right? Loving it, you know, everything's fine. It's like BP's been freed, right? You know, freed, right? You know, found freedom, right? And they're a little bit, you know, looking, you see the three little wolves watching there, thinking, what's going on? But I think the three little wolves had an idea, right, of this in mind already, right? Yeah, smart, right? You know, yes, right? And at first, come at it with a different way, right? Armor plating is no good. Well, let's do something else here, right? At first, right, the three little wolves are a bit worried, right? They think it might be a trick because, you know, you can't trust BP, you know? No, you're not going to trust the oppressor, you know? Those that are going to put us down, keep us down. No, we're not going to trust. No. Just say, we're not going to throw ourselves at you like that. No. We've had too much pain, right? You know? No. We've got some experience here. We know how things are going, right? But soon, right, they realized that the pig, BP, had truly changed, right? And so they came running out of the house, right? And they started playing games with him, right? Look at this. Look at the house. The birds are back. See, all the birds are coming. Flowers there, trees and everything, and nature, earth, wind, and fire, all connected, right? Everyone connected with each other. Everyone tied with each other. All of our relations around us, right? All of us together, right? And they start playing games with him, right? And they played pig pog, right? And then piggy in the middle, which I think is a bit mean, right? Piggy in the middle, pig pog, and this kind of thing. But, they deserve a little payback, right? They deserve a little payback, right? After what they've been through, right? And then, after they're all tired, right? They invite BP into the house, right? So they go into the house. Everybody's tired, right? And what do? Oh, they have tea. Look at this. They offer BP tea and strawberries and wolfberries, right? Wolfberries. And they ask BP to stay with them as long as he wants, right? As long as he would like, right? And BP accepts, right? And they all live happily together ever after. Look at that. And you see, BP's talking, right? I like to think BP's talking here, having good talks here, everybody's happy, everybody's connected. And I like to think of BP is now talking about, how BP's changed, how he's changed, right? How, maybe BP had been hurt so much, right? That maybe BP thought that self-defense, right? The way to defend yourself, right, was to protect yourself from feelings of, you're not worth anything, right? You've been told you're not worth anything. Maybe you've been hurt, right? And maybe you didn't have any family, right? Nothing like that, right? So what you do is you're feeling all kind of alone, all kind of isolated, right? All kind of sad, right? And what you do is you defend that feeling, right, by hurting somebody else, and that makes you feel good, right? So I like to think that BP is now saying, what I'm doing now, I understand right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna defend all of us now. This is all my family now, right? And I'm going to understand now when I think about self-defense, right? It's going to about defending ourselves from all of that out there, right? That is looking to harm us, that's looking to put us down, that's looking to keep us down, kind of thing, right? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So there we go. So that's the end of the story, right? The three little wolves and the big bad pig, right? So I think what I'd ask, right, when you think about self-defense, right? Because, remember when BP is talking about and thinking about self-defense, it's all about him, right? It's all about, now it's about community, right? It's about defending the family, defending the community, right? And that's what the three little wolves were doing all along. And that's what everybody else was doing, right? Like rhinoceros, right? The rhino, right? Kangaroo, beaver, I kind of wonder, though, if kangaroo, beaver, rhino had all stood together, right? Would, right? BP be able to do that in the first place? I don't think so, right? But maybe, they've got their own thing going. Maybe, they know what they're doing. But I think that perhaps they could have all come together, right? And stood up to BP, right? And said, look, BP, right? You want to be a part of us, that's fine, right? But if you're going to continue to hurt us, right? We're going to oppose you, we're going to kick you out of here, right? We're going to tell you to get back, right? But we're okay. You're going to come with us, right? You want to be a part of us, right? But when we talk about self-defense, right, we're talking about refusing to harm each other, right? Right? Yeah? So when we think about self-defense then, when I think about self-defense, I think about it in a way, going from the boogers, right? And going from the boogers to self-defense in terms of, thinking about anti-racism, right? Opposing racism, right? Opposing oppression, that which keeps us down, that which puts us down, right? That which tells us who we should be and who we should not be, right? That hurts us, right? That does violence to women, right? That does violence to lesbian and gay folks, right? There's violence to people with disability, right? Those kind of things. That's all of our community, right? And indigenous folks, right? That steals land away from us, right? Right? We defend ourselves against all of that. So BP is not always, it's not always one person, right? Here in this story, it is BP, the big bad pig, right? But I'll ask you, what does BP, what does self-defense then mean to you? And how has BP looked to you? How have you, right? How's BP been a part of your lives? Because BP was not just the pig, as I said before, right? BP for me was the social workers who took us away, right? It was the racism from policing, right? It was the people who put us on the streets, right? It was the people who wouldn't let us have a house and a roof over our heads, right? It is the people who hurt us in the classroom, right? Hurt me in the classroom. It was the schools that I went to, right? That was all BP, right? So it wasn't just one person, right? It was a whole set of people, right? Who could decide again, right? What they were going to do to me, right? So I think of BP now, I think of folks, right? Who are in policing. I think of folks who are in teaching. I feel folks who are in things like children's aid. I think of landlords who evicted us, right? A few times we would come home, after going away for a short while, right? And we come back and find our cases, right, on the street, right? So BP was that landlord, the landlord that my mother went to and screamed at and shouted at, right? And told them, you cannot put us down on the streets like this. You've got a responsibility towards us, right? Right? And it was BP also, those landlords and those people who made my mother cry, right? Having to work 3 or 4 jobs, right? Just so we could pay rent that was way too high for the tiny little room that we were in, right? And for the little bit of food, because my mother also went without food just to feed me, right? So whoever did that, that was BP too, right? So when we think about self-defense, we think about self-defense again in relation to, right? Against BP, right? Against the oppressor, against those that are going to put us down, right? And those that want to keep us down, right? So maybe you have an idea, right? In your own mind, right? Who BP is or what BP is in your life, right? Yeah? So let's think about that, right? And if we're thinking about self-defense, right? So what does self-defense mean to you? Right? What does self-defense mean to you, right? Everybody, we all have stories about how we defend ourselves, right? It may well be that we defend ourselves, by hurting others. And we've got to pull away from that, right? We've got to think about that, and then we're going to refuse that, because that's BP in our heads, right? Right? That's us doing the business of BP, hurting one another, right? Right? Doing harm to one another, right? We refuse that, right? And we refuse that every single day, right? So, last question I would ask, right? Self-defense, right? If self-defense, right? We think about self-defense as like a pie, right? It's whatever pie it is, right? No, let me think about self-defense as a roti, right? In my background, on my father's side, is a Trinidadian Caribbean background, and we like rotis, right? Which is like this crepe kind of thing, with all sort of curry inside. Sometimes it's potato inside with curry, some kind of different meats and this kind of thing, right? And it can be, vegetables kind of thing, right? And I mean, it's wonderful, right? And I can make a good roti, right? Some people think of it as like a pancake. It's not really, and it's wrapped up in all this wonderful stuff, right? But you have a recipe, might have a recipe for that, right? A recipe for roti, right? Which, if it's curry, it'll be things like turmeric, maybe you have your own curry pasta, this kind of thing. You may want to put some other herbs and spices in there, right? Put some onions perhaps in there, right? When you're cooking the curry first, right? And then with the roti, right? You have your flour and all that kind of thing, right? So if you had a recipe, right? you would have all of those kind of what they call ingredients, right? Right? Flour, water, etc. Right? All that kind of stuff, right? So earth, wind, and fire. Just as soon as I say water, right? We're thinking about or how we are connected to everything, right? So if self-defense, right, is a roti, right? What would we want to, what we would want, what would our ingredients be, right? What we would need to think about, right? But if we're going to do self-defense for ourselves, our families, our communities, right? Our all collectives, our peoples, right? Right? Because we know what we've got to think also about what we're defending ourselves against. Well, it's BP. What does BP look like? That's the question, right? So what do we need to think about when you think about self-defense? One thing I would say, right, and this is where I go from the snot, right, to now teaching, right? Not only teaching also, but just protecting my own community, right, and my own family, and wider, bigger families and bigger collectives that are a part of my peoples, right? Right? One of the things that I want to think about, right, if I'm talking about self-defense, how do I defend myself against BP, is knowing as much about BP as I can. So that's education, right? Right? And that's another kind of education, right? That's a self-defense education, right? So what does that mean, right? That's just one example, right? So I'm going to leave it at that, right? I hope this has not been too long, right? And I hope, we can take up some of these questions, right? You're right. And I'll be back with another book, another read aloud. And for now, this is online, and hopefully I will be coming into the classroom along with the Protégé project for self-defense members, right? And we'll be coming in and we'll be connecting with you and your wonderful teacher, Alok, right? And we'll be doing self-defense, right? But remember, self-defense you can do right now in this moment, right? So how do you defend yourself right now in this moment, right? In this moment, wherever you are right now. That's another question, of course, right? How do you practice it, right? How do you take it up, right? How do you do it, right? How do you live it, right? Because it should be a part of all our lives, right? And that's how, right? That's how we understand freedom, right? Right? That's how we understand not being controlled and chained, kept down by BP, right? Right? That's how we understand that we have power, right? That you have power, right? It's not just BP doesn't have power, right? You have power, right? So we got to tap into that, right? Right? We got to grow that like those flowers, right? In Earth, Wind, and Fire's garden, right? Right? We have power, right? We are powerful, right? Right? And we will defend ourselves, right? Okay, I'll say much respect to everyone, and I'll say much love.